Welcome to Through the Eyes of Survivors. This is a podcast where we amplify the voices of those who've been silenced, whether survivors or those lost to domestic violence. My name is Tara, and I'm here to take you on a journey. And we're going to listen and learn and heal in our podcast today. Now, each episode, we're going to sit down and listen to brave individuals who have navigated their journey through domestic violence and emerged stronger for it. Their stories are here to inspire you and help us understand through the complexities and what domestic violence really entails. So this podcast isn't just about stories, it's a call to action. By leading, us down a path and a narrative where you lend your ears, we can contribute to a world where we can become more compassionate and more informed about this issue. I'm Tara Woodlee, your host on this journey, and this is Through the Eyes of Survivors. Welcome, everyone. We have a really great guest in this episode. I'd like to introduce Ty Travis. She's with an organization called Beautiful Beginnings, which also has an under organization called Stephanie's Circle, which is an organization in honor of Ty's mom, who was lost to domestic violence. So welcome, Ty. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the circle today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your mom's story and what happened?
Well, it all started, my mom has gone through domestic violence most of my life. I can remember of just different situations taking place. My mother left me when I was 6, and she got into some relationships that were really hard. By the age of 7, she came back to get me, and I began to, be incorporated into her life again and her boyfriend. And with that, she had one boyfriend that particularly that I talk about the story of. He was very aggressive, and he would, be nice during the day, but when those lights went out or when the doors closed and everybody else was sleeping is when we heard the thumps and the arguing and the yelling and things of that nature. And it just never stopped. And even when my mother tried to leave the person, he came back and pretty much just continued to torture her a lot and take as much of her beauty away as he could. Taking away her strength as a woman and her beauty as a woman, and her voice was gone, and it just all began to untangle in a way that just wasn't healthy.
Absolutely. I understand what you mean by that. It seems, especially for some reason, the things I've noticed about the victims who have lost their lives, well, and survivors in general, there's usually something really magnetic about that person, that this abusive relationship and the narcissist plays a role, like they're attracted to it, but yet it's like they try to suck the life out of it and destroy it. So that's kind of what was happening. I think I'm hearing from you what was happening with your mom in that relationship, right?
Yes.
And yes.
I think even before, if I was to rewind back to when I was 3, my memory takes me all the way back to I was 3. And I remember her having relationships before she left me, and how those were aggressive, and how I had fear of the people that she had around. Now, my mom was a vibrant woman. Like, she was very social. She loved to talk. She loved to be around people. And so you would always find her having a good time with a group of people, and you would have her having a good time smiling and singing and making sure everyone's okay. But like I said, no matter in any of the environments that we had been introduced to as a kid, where we didn't hear those thumps in the middle of the night. And so even before she left me when I was 6, I did see those things in the household day and night. And it was something that, to some, it became a norm, but it became a norm to where you were fearful of it, but you didn't really know what to do as a kid. You wanted your mom to be okay, and you wanted to be able to hold her and tell her everything was okay. But some nights it just was too hard where we couldn't do that. So we kind of just walked in silence in the house, and we would peek around the corner just to check to make sure she was okay. So those are the type of things that we did see, and that's how we kind of dealt with at a young age. Because how much can we understand, and how much can we really say at that young of an age?
Well, exactly, because the person that is your protector is now the person who's being hurt. So it puts children in a very precarious situation of where do they go and who do they trust.
Hmm.
So I imagine that was, a very painful, stressful childhood. Do you think that it was something that a lot of times when you start talking to different families who experienced what we have, losing a loved one and stuff, that it's generational? Do you think that there was something generational within the family that triggered her to having these type of relationships?
Well, to go back to my mom's history, my mom was adopted. So her and my aunt was adopted. And so my grandmother actually took her in. So my grandmother never had any biological kids herself. She adopted. And so she adopted two young girls, and she raised them as her own. And so my grandmother didn't have history of it at all. She was married. They came from a really good home. There was a lot of love in the home. I'm
Right.
not for sure where the disconnect was as to how my mother got into the environment she worked in. I think most of the time, because my mom was so vibrant, she had a really good personality. She could talk to anybody, and so anyone that she met would love her. But I just think it was just
Right.
the person that she was connected to they may have had cycles of this taking place.
Right.
And that's how it kind of was incorporated to her. So she was just kind of like a product that ended up getting into a situation to where someone probably already was dealing with it at home, and then they brought it into their relationship. But I can tell you, it didn't happen from my mother's side. From what I understand, I never met my
Okay.
grandfather, but my grandmother, I had a really good relationship with, and she would tell me about stories about my
Right.
mother and things of that nature. Now, I will say that when my mom did find out she was adopted, she did not take it well, and so a lot
Right.
of her her decisions may not have always been good when it came to her surrounding. But she knew a lot of
Mhm.
people. She was she was into music. And I'm not for sure all her history of what she did, but she may have modeled when she was younger, um, back
Okay.
in those days too. So she always been in the community. She's always been around some elite people, as far as like musicians and her crowd of people. So it just maybe just some of the environments that she may have been placed in or put herself in could have meeting people, and not really being able to see that side until later on down the road, because everybody doesn't expose that right away. It takes a moment for it to come out.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. So, you know, t- so take me down the road. So she's in this abusive relationship. How many years did this go on?
um, from my recollection of everything, I can tell you at 3 to 6, I seen it, with the abuse taking place on and off. There was situations to where
Mm-hmm.
the abuse was, we've had situations where hit a gunpoint, where one of my brothers was held at gunpoint by one of her baby's fathers, and that was an abusive relationship.
Oh wow.
So that's around 3 to 6. I left when I was 7, moved in with my mom. We were relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio, and we stayed with her for about a year. And so the situation that I actually exposed to the community is the situation when my mother was abused by the man who took her to Cincinnati, and he just he was very, I don't know, he was a nice person during the day, like I said, but at night he just kind of changed his
Uh-huh.
situation around. But I will tell you, my mother had, I want to say there was a disconnection with her and this guy at one point, and she had went out with another guy. And when she went out with the guy, um, he knew she was out with another date, and so he sat in the parking lot until she came back. And in the parking lot is where he met her with a rifle, and he told her if she didn't get out the car, he was going to kill her and her kids, which was myself and my brother. And so that night, he took my mother and
Oh, wow.
used her in the middle of the street, um, and she was cut 27 times in the head and in the back. And so that was the most realest story that I can tell you guys. I was the one who had to help my mom, and just nursing her back.
Right.
But my mother was very strong. Even through that situation, she was able to walk in the room to tell us she was okay. And then she was provided care for her wounds. And so it just made reality of, as a 7-year-old, is just like, what just happened? And so when I asked the question to the guy, I said, why did you do this to my mother? And I remember him taking his nails, and he scratched them down like it was like a brick wall. And he just began to scratch his nails down. And he basically told me in the most aggressive but non-aggressive way that it was none of my business. And I can tell you that man never went to jail for what he did. My mother did not press charges, and that man did not go to jail for what he did to her.
Wow.
After that, there was situations that kept happening. We found ourselves running as children, and my mother running from different locations from this person. And then we also were placed in a hotel, and this is where my mother disappeared. She was basically kidnapped by this guy, and we didn't know where she was. And so me and my brother was stuck in a hotel by ourselves, trying to survive and trying to figure out how to get back to our family. So my brother's a lot older than me, so he was able to contact some family to get us home. And so someone came from Ohio, where we're from, and came and picked us up. So I want to say around 8 years old, I made it back to Ohio through family members coming to get us. My mother did not come back. She stayed back because we didn't know where she was. We eventually later on found a way to do an investigation because she was just missing again. And so we were able to find her. But what happened is that this same man, he kidnapped her and drugged her and threw her out in the street to die. And someone actually found her and nursed her back to health. So it's been a whole lot.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. My name is Tara Woodlee, and I am the president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. It's an organization that gives survivors and their families that have lost a loved one to domestic violence access to a community that really understands the journey that they face. We hope this episode impacts you. And whether you're a survivor or you're a family member, you may want to learn more about the topic. Hopefully, it's helping you in some way. Also, make sure you click the subscribe button below and the bell right next to it so that you can get notified when the next episode premieres. Thank you.
So by the time I was able to really begin to start reconnecting with my mom, I was back in 1996, 97. And when I married in 1998. And so I was trying to get her back home with me so I could take care of her and introduce her to my husband. But unfortunately, she passed in 1999 before I was able to introduce her to my husband, because my husband's military and he was away on an assignment for a year. And so we got married in 1998. She passed in 99, but in the interim, I was trying to get her home. But my husband never got a chance to meet her because she passed away.
That's horrific. I cannot imagine being a child that young in a hotel and wondering where my mother was and having to depend upon a sibling to take care of me in that fashion. That would be pretty traumatic. Wow, I just applaud you. You've been through so much. And so, was your, you know, I think that the audience be begging to ask, did your mother actually get free of him, or did he contribute to her passing away?
She did once she was found in the alley. She did disconnect from him finally, but he had always tracked us. He tracked me and my brother, and he tracked my mother, so he always knew where we were. So my mom became fearful to go outside. She became fearful of opening up the doors. So she didn't really. She was just stripped of so much as a woman, and she got to the point where her trust was very, very thin, and she just, I don't know, she just didn't want to be around a lot of people after so much has happened to her. So
Hmm.
it was a lot of fear. She had a lot of fear in her, but she was still strong at a point where she knew who she was, but she just didn't want to go through that anymore. And I remember as I was going through her materials of when I gathered all her stuff back, she had some notes that pretty much, kind of gave me a feeling like she had tried to have a voice to tell somebody. So what she did is she wrote it down on paper. So she never really opened
Right.
her mouth to say it out loud. But when I went through her belongings is when I found a note that said that, that he hits me. And I wish I had the note with me so I could read it verbatim what she said. But it was one note, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it never stopped. Um, but she
Hmm.
never talked to the family about it. A lot of times, I don't even know when, if she ever reported any of this to the police. I did ask for like, to check medical records when she passed and everything like that, just to see the history, because my mom was adopted and we don't have a lot of history on her. Um, but I wasn't able to get any of that material during that time. So my story is really just to put it out there that, I know it happens. I know it happens a whole lot in families, and I know how our voice can be taken away. So when Beautiful Beginnings was created, it was created to be able to do all things beautiful, from your mental to just your whole body, your mind, body, and soul. Because I think inner and outer beauty is what I look at now. And I remember being in therapy, and the therapist asked me, what did I want to do, because I was giving and supporting and to a lot of people. And she said, what's one thing you would want to do? I said, I would want to do something in my mother's name, because she was a victim of domestic violence. And because of that, Beautiful Beginnings was created to be able to sow into the community with, not only do I do teas and herbal teas to look at the health side of our being, but also to bring awareness and education to advocate for those who have gone through abuse, that which covers domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault, because I was a victim of child abuse. And so
Right.
being able to cover that realm is because that's where I come from.
Right. So your advocacy is not only just to bring healing to yourself, but again, it's a beautiful way to honor your mother, the struggle she went through. I know generations like my generation, I'm older, and when when my abuse happened, the society did not help women whatsoever. So I imagine she was probably going through very much of the same thing. If police were called or anything happened, they just tell you to go take a walk, and they wouldn't do any charges, and nobody was going to jail. That was before they started those laws where somebody was going to go to jail. So I know from experience how that can beat somebody down to where you
Mhm.
just are crushed and feel like you are stuck in
Yeah.
this. So it sounds to me that's a lot of what your mother was experiencing during that time.
Yeah, and one thing I think about when I go back and I think about her story and all that she'd been through, I would say, if I mean, I can't really go into my mom's mind and really tell you what her thinking was, but
Hmm.
from what I can see, I think it was protection for her kids too. because she
Right.
had me and my brother who was affected by this, and we were our lives were threatened too. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
she was just like, you know what, I have to protect my two kids, which she has four out of it's four of us all together. So I have it's two girls and two boys, but at that time in her life it was just me and my brother. I'm the baby sister, and then it's my older brother that she was really trying to protect. And I think with that she had to make a decision. Okay, what do I do? Do I just, you know, cover my kids in this moment to where they're not hurt, or what? So I think that might have been part of her thinking when it came to her steps and how she dealt with stuff. But at the same time, I mean, my mom was strong, but she didn't deserve what had taken place in her life.
No, no,
Hmm.
nobody deserves that kind of thing to happen
You're
to them.
right.
That's just horrific because, this is more than just two people arguing or some kind of lovers quarrel or something like that. People don't
Hmm.
understand how, threatening it really becomes, even like you were talking about, guns pointed in your children's faces, and the children have to suffer through that, and it's a horrific thing to endure. So, um, tell us a little bit more about your journey into the advocacy part and starting this organization. So, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, we basically hit the ground running when I really knew, when I made a commitment that this was something that I wanted to do. We began starting Beautiful Beginnings with selling tea, herbal tea products to help with health and wellness. And we added the educational side to where it's all things beautiful. And so we took the tea to be a way to bring a product to the community to where it would raise money to go towards domestic violence. So 10% of all sales from the company's called Beauty. So from Beauty, we put 10% of all sales to domestic violence. And so with that, we're looking at advocacy, education, awareness, shelters. And so we want to take this not only to Maryland, but we want to make it a global thing. So with being a military spouse, I have people that are strategically placed all over the place. And so what
Right.
we do is we connect. And if someone in Texas is needing shelters or supplies or something like that, and we can help, we will mail those things to that location. We did that over COVID. When COVID took place, we called shelters to see, hey, what items do you need? How can we help? And so I know there's a lot of shelters. I know there's a lot of different organizations who are doing the same thing. But we just really wanted to get in there and make an impact and be a part of the community to say, hey, we're here. We're very small, but even being small, we can still have connections all over the world to where we can do our part. We can put our hand in the pot to help in any area that we can. So COVID was one of the areas where we began to. I called a lot of my friends, my partners, and said, hey. At the time, Florida was needing shelter items, so everybody mailed things to me. We packed that up and we sent it over to Florida, and we sent it to a shelter there. We have shelters here in Maryland that we reach out to, and we provide items to them as well. And then over the COVID time frame, I actually wrote a poetry book, and it's called Epiphany. And Epiphany was a book where I wrote poetry to not only help with my healing. Me and my brother, we came together and we said, we were writing poetry to each other, and we figured after us sharing so much of our materials, we realized that we were having epiphany moments. We weren't raised in the same house together, but we still had that same mindset. So we had a perspective that was coming from a female as well as a male perspective. And so we took that poetry and we began to write. And it was a journey of us really just being able to just be open to what we've gone through, but we realize that we're not the only ones going through it, that we have people in this world who are hurting, and we call it from hurt to healing. And so you're taking
Right.
that path that you have, and you're listening to those words, and we all can relate to the poetry. So even though some of it is pure me or pure my brother situation, at the end of the day, we're all trying to heal from something, whether it's abuse or sexual assault or domestic violence or just a hurt in general. And so that
Mm-hmm.
poetry is a way for us to take it and take a journey for ourselves. So our thing is you can read the poetry, and no matter who you are, you can relate to any of the words, any of the journeys that we go through. So we gone from beauty tea products to writing the poetry book Epiphany, and getting it out into the community. And then every year we do an annual event every year in October, and it's always the first week of October, to where we bring the community together. We talk about the educational side of abuse. We bring real life situations, without, that's not triggering though, because we want to bring the stories, but we don't want people to be triggered in the midst of it. So we want to educate you. We want to talk to you about the cycles of abuse. We want to bring some real situations so you know that this thing is happening every day, and the news isn't capturing it. A lot of our social media outlets are not talking about it. And even when COVID took place, I was kind of, it was kind of irritating to me to see that they weren't reporting the numbers properly, because
Right.
it was like, you know what, no matter what social media is doing, we know this happens every night. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that we have to deal with. And so it's just like we have to keep moving, and sending prayers out for those families who are going through and they can't report, or scared to leave, or whatever that looks like for them. But being able to find people that can connect with what our vision, what we're doing in the community, and say, hey, let us know if you need anything. And then reaching out to whomever, because this is a big world to try to get domestic violence, but it's all together in the community. We all can connect in some kind of way and talk about this thing and connect and get partnerships, no matter if you're in Maryland or Texas or Florida, no matter where you are, Georgia. We're saying let's come together, let's have a conversation, let's get the voice out, and basically no more silence. Let's talk about this thing. Let's take this hard conversation and bring it to where we can see it, we can hear it, we can do something about it together in a community. And if we just reach one person,
Oh yeah.
we've done a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes it worth it. Just I like to say all the time, it's time to bring that out of the darkness into the light. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, like you were talking about, everything happens in the darkness at night, right? And then you have to be quiet about it during the day, and the light brings something new, and then you get back into that darkness, and it's a whole cycle again. It's astounding to me that people want to stifle those kinds of voices, that these things are happening. So, yes, shedding a light on it, absolutely. And I love your perspective and your attitude, because, like, a lot of us, we just need to band together and just work this so that people are aware it is happening still, and make a change.
Yes.
Yeah, one person at a time.
One person at a
Yeah.
time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't know how much time we have, but if you have enough time, I can read one poem for you guys.
Absolutely, I would love that.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop now open. And this is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but also let everyone know that you will not be silent about this important cause. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab your swag, head to our store at breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate all that the community does to help support us and this organization. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode and continue to subscribe to future episodes. Thank you.
All right, so this is the book. It's called Epiphany, and I just want to just talk about the cover of the book. This is
Okay.
Our cover was made to talk about the fire that we went through and how we came out of the fire. So you see, the blue is like us. We're getting that revelation of, we've gone through the fire, we've gone through hurt, we've gone through pain, but that blue shows that we can come out of it. And so we don't have to stay in the midst of the things that have happened to us. We can walk out of it.
Right.
Now, it takes work though. So with work, it's one day at a time. And so this book was made by me and my brother. His name is Alfonso Luciano. And we just wanted to share this book with the world to, it says, poetry taking the heart from pain to healing is what it says under the capture. So I wanted to read one poem to you, and it's called Without You. And this poem was actually written in Germany when on one of my husband's tours. And I remember it was raining outside and I was missing my mother, and I looked up and I just was like, you know what, without you. So this poem really took me about 2 to 5 minutes to write, but it's a little lengthy, but I'll go ahead and start with it. It says, being in this world without you has left me with nothing but unanswered questions, indescribable pain that I feel deep down in the corners of my soul. Sometimes I don't know which way to turn. I just don't know where to go. Feeling so many ways, so confused with these days, and in nights, these restless nights that come up occasionally, have me tossing and turning, reaching for you and screaming your name. In the fogginess, mommy, I say, thinking of your beautiful face and smile while I lay in these endless tears that fall from my face. Dealing with disappointments by the people who are supposed to care has left me with more hurt than I can bear. I pause. Who can I run to? Being exposed to so many things, seeing these things, I need some understanding. You see, I'm lost in these entanglement of lies, wondering sometimes will I survive. I sit here, I see myself standing in the dark. Smoke screens cover my eyes, you see, from getting away from the images I see. Perhaps standing in the middle of the street trying to figure out where I am supposed to be. Holding my head alone, in searching, while saying, will this ever end? You see, you are the answer to every feeling, touch, and word that brings consolement to my being. However, you fade away before being able to reach me. Without you, I'm lost trying to put the pieces of my life together while looking up to heaven for the answers to take away the pain others have caused. I tell you, this roller coaster of life really has caused me pain. Spinning, feeling bruised and violated every time the cycle of memories passes through my veins. I am determined to let these walls fall. Cultivating relationships, learning to trust, and raising my kids feel like a maze. I get caught up every time. Having to press through when seeing what you and others did. Man, having to explain to the counselors everything y'all did. I will always love you. Still, I get mad at times due to destruction in my past. Like denying the truth, telling me I'm a liar when I said he touched me because he did. Me wiping the blood off your back that he did. I even remember the day when you walked out. Darkness came over me. My heart was ripped out of me. I was left feeling empty at a tender age, and you never came back. By the way, I was 6 years old to be exact. In your absence, dealing with getting beat by someone who saw you and me, having a gun held up to my head, thinking about death at the age of 16. Boy, I tell you, these abuses by others have left images that are embedded in my brain. It has left me discombobulated in so many ways. Doing the opposite of how I was raised is best for me. Not wanting another generation to have to live with emotional struggles like I did. Still, every day a part of me hurts. Yearning for your love and affection of a mother's touch. Yeah, despite what you did and what happened to me, I still need it. However, I realize I can sing any song to remind me of you. Look up to heaven to get a glimpse of you. But I will be forever without you. I'm just left in this world without you.
Oh, wow. That is just powerful. That's like a window into your soul. I always find poetry to be like that because I write some myself. So,
Yes.
and so did my daughter. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's yeah, powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, well, Ty, we thank you for being here on the podcast. Yeah, everybody, please, we'll have some links down in the descriptions to her organization and that book. So look
Yes.
for that. And we thank you and see you next time on Through the Eyes
All
of
right. And see us in the
Survivors.
community on October 1st. We'll be out there in the community.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today in this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. To continue supporting survivors and joining us in the fight against domestic violence, visit our website at www.breakthesilencetv.org. You can make a donation, look at some of our great programs, and together we can truly make a difference. If we can break our silence, so can you. So please donate and help share. Thank you.